Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We're here to connect the dots on today's tech news using the latest insights from our Morning Star report. We'll break down what's happening and really get into why it matters for you. It is Monday, July 28th, 2025.
It is indeed, and it's a lovely sunny day out here in Sacramento, going up to about 92 Fahrenheit later. Pretty nice.
Sounds perfect. Okay, quick look at the markets this morning. The Dow is up just a tiny bit, plus 15 points or so. S&P 500 also slightly up, about 0.13%. Bitcoin, though, is down over 1%, sitting around 118,000.
Oof, okay. Bit of a dip there.
Yeah, and closer to home, for our baseball fans, tough night for the Giants.
Oh, no, don't tell me.
Yeah, lost 3-5 to the Mets yesterday, and the Mets completed the sweep, so rough weekend for the Giants faithful.
That's a tough break. Always hard to see a sweep.
Definitely. But all right, let's shift gears. We've got three big topics from the Morning Star report we want to unpack today.
Right. First, we're looking at AI and filmmaking, some really interesting developments there. Then, a pretty serious update on Google's earthquake alert system.
Yeah, that was crucial.
And finally, we'll talk about how new tariffs are hitting fast fashion, specifically companies like Shein.
Okay, let's jump into that first one. AI in filmmaking. I saw this news about Imax teaming up with Runway AI. They're screening AI Film Festival finalists.
That's right. 10 finalists at 10 Imax locations across the U.S. It's a pretty big signal, showing how fast this tech is moving into, well, more mainstream spaces.
It feels like it exploded, right? Runway's festival's only, 3 years old?
Exactly, third year. And the growth is just, wow. In 2023, they had around 300 films submitted.
Okay.
This year, 6,000.
Whoa. 6,000, that's huge.
It's massive. The CEO, Cristobal Valenzuela, he put it really well. Said something like, 3 years ago, this was such a crazy idea. Today, millions of people are making billions of videos using tools we only dreamed of.
Incredible leap. So what are these AI films actually like? Is it all just, computers generating movies start to finish?
That's a good question. It's actually more nuanced. The films are really varied. The top winner, Total Pixel Space, is like almost 9.5 minutes long.
Okay.
And it explores this idea of how many images can even exist digitally. Uses math for these huge numbers, described as having stunning visuals, kind of reality-bending stuff.
Huh. Interesting.
Then you've got totally different things like Jailbird, which is like a documentary about a chicken in a UK prison, from the chicken's point of view.
Okay, wow. A chicken documentary.
Yeah, and another called One About Space Travel. The key thing is they don't have to be 100% AI generated.
Yeah.
Mixed media is actually encouraged. So blending real shots with AI stuff, it's more about experimenting.
Gotcha. So it's a tool, not necessarily a replacement for the filmmaker. How's the big industry, like Hollywood, taking all this? Are they seeing it as, a threat or more of an opportunity?
Well, from the executive side, it seems mostly like an opportunity. Efficiency, innovation. Professor Joshua Glick mentioned that AI is already way more involved than people think.
Right. Not just the flashy stuff.
Exactly. Not just de-aging actors or big CGI. It's in post-production, editing, digital touch-ups, even just sorting through mountains of footage. Studios see it as a way to speed things up, do things in minutes that took hours.
Okay. Efficiency makes sense from a business perspective, but that obviously brings up the other side, the concerns from workers, right?
Yeah.
Unions must have things to say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unions like IATA and SAG-AFTRA, they're very clear. They're okay with tech that helps tell stories, but they're pushing back hard against anything that undermines jobs or rights. They want guardrails.
Makes sense. Need protection.
Yeah. But then you have the counter argument, like from Runway's CEO Valenzuela, saying AI can help creatives.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of compares the fear now to, fears people had about earlier film tech breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm. History repeating itself, maybe?
Maybe. And filmmaker Flying Lotus, Stephen Ellison, he talked about this idea of play around and find out. Like AI lets you stumble onto cool stuff, these hallucinatory, dreamlike results you didn't plan.
So it's like collaborating with the randomness a bit.
Kind of, yeah. It's less about total control and more about seeing what emerges. It's this interesting mix of human intent and, AI weirdness.
That is where it gets really interesting, that blend. But, thinking about AI, relying on it for creative stuff is one thing. What happens when we rely on it for something critical like safety and it drops the ball?
That's a perfect transition, actually, because our next story is exactly about that. Google's Android Earthquake Alert System, the AEA.
Right. The situation in Turkey last year, they've admitted some pretty serious failures, haven't they?
They have. A huge failure, really. The system should have sent out about 10 million take action alerts, the highest level warning during those devastating earthquakes.
10 million. And how many actually went out?
469.
Wait, 469 instead of 10 million?
Yeah. Instead, it sent about 500,000 of the lower level Be Aware notifications.
Wow, that's staggering, especially given the timing, 4:17 a.m., and the terrible human cost over 55,000 lives lost. Those high-level alerts could have made such a difference.
Absolutely critical. Just to clarify the difference, take action alerts are designed to be impossible to miss. Loud sound overrides Do Not Disturb, takes over your screen.
Yeah.
Vital for waking people up.
Yeah.
Be Aware is much less intrusive for lighter shaking. The AEA system itself, launched in 2020, is clever. It uses the motion sensors, the accelerometers, and Android phones.
Right, crowdsourcing the detection.
Exactly. It's active in almost 100 countries.
Yeah.
But in this case, that massive network just didn't deliver the right warning to the vast majority of people who needed it most.
So what went wrong? Why did it fail so badly? Google initially said it performed well, didn't they?
They did initially, which makes the later admission even more stark. In a Science magazine article, they finally detailed the limitations to the detection algorithms. Essentially, the system drastically underestimated the magnitude of that first 7.8 quake.
How badly?
It judged it as being somewhere between 4.5 and 4.9 magnitude.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference.
Huge. And even the second major quake later that day was underestimated, though slightly more alerts went out than about 8,000 take action ones. Still far short of what was needed.
And it took them 2 years to release these details.
2 years, which has drawn criticism, as you can imagine.
Yeah, understandably. So have they fixed it? What happens now?
Well, they say they've revised the algorithms. They ran simulations with the new model, and now it shows it would have sent the 10 million take action alerts and even more Be Aware ones.
Okay, so it should work better now.
It should. But Google also points out that tuning these systems for massive quakes is a challenge for everyone in the field. It really highlights this black box issue with critical AI, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, even the developers sometimes struggle to pinpoint exactly why a failure occurred in such complex systems. And when lives are at stake, that's a serious problem. It raises questions about trust, regulation, and whether we're sometimes placing too much faith in tech that's still evolving.
Yeah, and Google themselves say it's not supposed to replace official national systems.
Right. But people might still rely on it.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about our dependence on these automated systems in emergencies.
Definitely. And, speaking of systems we rely on that are changing, let's talk about something maybe a bit more everyday, but still impactful. Online shopping. Specifically, fast fashion and Shine. Prices are going up.
They are, significantly. And it's tied directly to a change in U.S. tariff policy, the de minimis exemption. That's largely gone for shipments from China.
Right. The rule that let individual packages under $800 come in duty-free.
Exactly. Shein and Temu, too, built a huge part of their business model on that, sending tons of small, cheap packages directly to consumers, bypassing import duties. In 2022, something like 83% of all U.S. e-commerce imports used that loophole, and Shein and Temu made up nearly a third of that.
Wow. So they had a massive advantage, but that loophole closed.
It did. The Trump administration closed it for China and Hong Kong shipments back on May 2nd, 2025. So now, those goods face tariffs could be 30% on clothes, maybe even way higher in some cases.
And we're seeing the effect already. Raiders did some price tracking.
Yeah, they tracked about 200 Shein items from late April to late July. And the trend is pretty clear.
What did they find?
Well, there was a price spike right before the May 2nd deadline. Then a little dip, but prices climbed again through the summer. By late July, the average price for their cheaper stuff was up 12.5% compared to April.
Okay, 12.5% is noticeable.
It is. And some examples were way more dramatic. They looked at 10 basic items. Their total cost went from $31 to $69 in less than 3 months.
Whoa, over double.
Yep, a 123% jump on that specific basket of goods. And it wasn't just the super cheap stuff. Higher priced items, like in the $80 to $270 range, saw average prices go up about 23%.
That's a real hit, especially for people who rely on those low prices. This must have broader implications, right?
Absolutely. This isn't just about Shein's profits. Analysts point out that these price hikes hit lower income and minority communities harder, as they tend to rely more on these ultra-low-cost retailers. There was a National Bureau of Economic Research study that estimated ending de minimis could cost U.S. consumers somewhere between roughly $11 and $13 billion overall.
Billion with a B.
Billion. And poorer areas would feel more of that pain. An economist involved, Amit Khandelwal from Yale, basically said it's going to raise prices, especially for lower-income folks. It's a direct link between trade policy and the cost of everyday goods.
So it really challenges Shein's whole approach. Cheap production, fast shipping, low friction.
Totally. They're facing more delays, more costs, thinner margins. They have to pass some of that on, but they also risk losing their main appeal being cheap.
Right. Tricky balance.
Very. One logistics expert basically said, yeah, their margins will shrink, prices will go up. Bloomberg even reported Shein briefly cut prices in mid-May, maybe to try and keep customers after the initial tariff shock. It shows they're scrambling a bit.
And this might just be the beginning, right? There's talk of even more trade actions.
Yeah, the administration has signals potentially a full ban on de minimis by 2027. So this era of just incredibly cheap, direct from China, fast fashion.
Yeah.
It might genuinely be winding down for millions of shoppers.
Wow, quite a shift. Okay, so wrapping up today, we've touched on AI's growing, sometimes unpredictable role in creativity, the sobering lessons from when critical tech systems falter, and how global trade policy is directly changing the price of things we buy online.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? With tech evolving so fast and global rules constantly shifting, how much trust should we place in automated systems, especially for safety? And how are these bigger economic forces going to change what we can access and afford? Definitely some things to chew on. What really stood out to you today?
Lots to consider. We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.